Hey, this is Scott from PRSSetups.com, the place where you get 3 different builder setup packs for $20 a month. It's the best deal in sim racing. It's like going to 3 different setup shops. So we're at Daytona, so pretty easy for a lap, kind of drive around, top line, bottom line. Seems like the bottom line really gets side drafted hard, but it's really hard to get the momentum on the high side working. The tandem here is really strong until you get broken apart, and then you will absolutely get swallowed up. So make sure if you're tandeming, where you end up with the tandem is where you want, and you're not just going to get side drafted and blown by everybody. But our setup packs are divvied into SOFs, so if you're on a higher SOF, we chose a lower gear because you have a little bit better momentum. If you're on like a lower SOF, people tend to kind of swerve and bob and weave a little more than the higher SOFs. So what you're going to have there is kind of a generally slower pack. So if you choose the high SOF in a lower SOF field, you'll end up losing the draft more easily. So we'd recommend you stick with kind of where your SOFs are. If you're like, for example, this one is a 4K SOF, and there is going to be a lower SOF, which is going to be 2K. So if you're between 2 and 4K, you kind of got to feel it out whether you want to run the high or the low. And so what we're going to talk about here is how to deal with someone that's wiggling all over the place. I got an AI session here. I kind of got the AI car to wiggle for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to ride on board, and I'm going to give you some pointers of what to do. So essentially you can't see anything. You just look at the back of this guy's car. He's all over the place. You're like, why can't this guy hold a straight line? So essentially when you push, you don't want to be on this side. You want to be on the left side. So he's wiggling. You're kind of trying to back off. You don't want to take him out. But where you want to be is on the left side. So we're going to watch that. And you saw I hit him on the right side. He juked to the left. So it's not what you want to do. You want to be on the left. And then this is kind of typical. You'll gain down the straightaway to give them a bump at the end of the straightaway. Now notice he's swaying, so you want to take your eyes and you're going to want to look at this yellow line here. So if you're offset to the left, you want to look ahead. Do not look at the back of this car, because you'll want to try to steer where they are, trying to keep your car's kind of linked up. But realistically what you want to do is you want to look ahead and try to put the car that's swaying all over your front of your car out of your mind. And this is almost bumping, so this distance here is about the closest you're going to get. Typically you want to be pretty close. That's the best way to generate runs, best way to draft. If you don't feel comfortable with that, try to stay within a half a car. Coming up here on the tri-oval, do not hit on the tri-oval. If you do, this car will absolutely want to spin out. You might cause a gigantic crash. So notice how I'm backing off right here, because I'm like, I don't want to hit this car on the tri-oval. But you'll see I actually do. And then that happens, they move out of the way. So, or they cause a giant crash. So just be aware that pushing in the tri-oval, not good. You also want to be as close as possible. So the other thing to note is where you put your car on the back of another car. We're going to go up to this group right here, and this bar right here on your car needs to be right here on the camera. And that right there is perfectly in line. You see how the AI is kind of keeping that bar right there on the camera? That's perfectly straight. Right down the center line. Let's go to blimp, and you notice how they're awful straight. And then right here, this bar right on the camera is going to get you your absolute most perfect draft that you can get. This is a 3-foot gap. This right here is what the AI does, and it gives the maximum amount of momentum, least amount of drag without hitting, without overheating, things like that. So stay as close as possible. The other thing is the third car really has a huge effect on the draft. So if you find that you are the third car, make sure you keep up with that second car as much as possible. That right there is huge. And fourth car, fifth car, sixth car, it means a lot to you, but not as much as the third car, really getting on the second car to push them up to the first car and kind of getting your momentum going. So the last thing we're going to go over is pit road and how to get on pit road. So essentially you're coming straight in. So you're pointing your car straight into the pits. You want to get below the yellow line as soon as possible because you do not want people hitting you in the back and spinning you out, things like that. I went a little shallower than what you could do. You could kind of keep your rights close to the yellow, but essentially what we are looking for on entry is there's this light pole here, and then there's this cutout right here at the wall, and then you have your A pillar. So essentially you want to break between this pole and this cutout. If you go all the way to this cutout, you can barely make it, but you've got to get way under pit road speed because you're going to hit the line over the speed limit. You're going to have to back it down to like a 50 because the pit road speed limit is 60. And then you can continue on back up to 60 because the segments are timed and they're not by speed. So we're going to watch that. See, I was kind of safe. I was 60 a little bit before here. So essentially, you need to be on the brakes really hard, threshold braking, and you notice I am full brake before this wall brake. And you're absolutely straight. If you start turning, you're going to start locking up the brakes, so try to be straight as possible. And then pit stop. I was really conservative. I was about 4 pits back here before I hit the brake. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about where you want to be. You'll hear the spotter count down. Another thing I'm going to mention here is your pit stop and what to choose. So essentially, if you have auto fuel checked and say you're running in the back of the pack, conserving, backing off the throttle and everything, what you want to do is you want to increase your margin to like a 2 or a 3. So if you find yourself in a situation to where you're in the back of the pack saving, and now for some reason you're leading, well, you just went from 50% throttle, 20%, 30% of the lap to wide open. And the fuel calculator really can't deal with trying to calculate what the fuel is. So I always throw in a 3-lap margin. That's my personal preference. You could do less than that. You could do more than that. I don't know if I'd go any more because 3 is pretty safe. So that's one thing. And then the add. So if you are under 10 gallons, I recommend only doing 2 tires. So you'll go over to your tires and they both will be checked. You just want to uncheck your lefts and then uncheck your windshield tear off. Alright, that's the fastest pit stop if you're under 10 gallons. If you're over 10 gallons, 2 tires will work too, but the time that you're going to be in pit road will still be about the same as if you change 4 tires because the fuel takes longer. So, you know, if you got to go full fuel, just go ahead and change 4. If you only got to go partial fuel, you know, you got the option to change in 2 tires. That right there is the biggest strategy by far, because then you won't lose the draft if you're drafting with the people, because those people will take 2 instead of 4. So windshield tear off, increase your margin a little bit, and then on tires, make sure you uncheck to go 2 tires, unless you have to take essentially a full tank of gas, 15 plus gallons. So that is another strategy, very, very important. And your tires do not wear. Just, it's okay changing 2, and it's okay changing 2 the entire race. If you're doing the Daytona 500, you're going to want to change 4, but maybe the last 2 pit stops, you can just change 2. It's up to you, but 2 tires is okay here. And this kind of Daytona, I've given you as much information as possible, but you know, it's gonna be a fun, exciting week, and I hope you all do well and enjoy the setups this week. I tested all 3 of them. They're all within less than half a tenth of each other. They all have extremely good speed. Our Q set is extremely fast. So go out there, have a good time, run Daytona, and good luck this week.